It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
And welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast, out of a Monday and into a Tuesday, as we cover your real estate news from all corners of the Australian property market 7 days a week, as heard on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Amazon. Yes, a Tuesday, as I mentioned, August the 27th today. And yesterday, if you were tuned in, you would have heard us in Perth talking about the lack of supply there, a little bit of a problem. And at the same time, of course, Perth seeing the strongest house price growth in Australia, with prices up over 25% across the last 12 months. But this morning, let's head off to Melbourne, where many people are moving from Melbourne into Perth because they can find better value. But not everybody has decided to make the move. There has been this appetite from investors to buy up in WA, and we are catching up with Chris Christofi, who is the chief executive of a Melbourne-based property investment company, Reventon. And Chris, welcome to the Real Estate Breakfast this morning. First off, as I mentioned, there are investment companies that are buying up in Perth. Some people have decided to stay in Melbourne. You're one of these investment companies that both look at the Perth property market as well as Victoria. And this year, what are your observations regarding the Melbourne real estate sector in particular, and the median price, I suppose, too, between Perth and Melbourne getting closer?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on the show. And as you said, yes, obviously property prices in Perth have gone up a lot, and it's closing that gap between the median house price. So we've been in Perth, investors investing in Perth for quite a number of years now. What we've seen is the land prices have gone up from 20 to 30%. The build prices have gone up 10, 15%. Which is actually, our clients have seen great growth. But what it has done is put more of a focus on people looking back into Victoria for those investment opportunities also.
How much of a factor is the high population growth in Melbourne at the moment? Because the migration, that is happening both interstate and internationally. In fact, just a couple of weeks ago, we were highlighting the number of Sydney people moving out of New South Wales into Victoria because they are saving around $500K. I mean, that's on a median house price. What an incentive to move, which is little wonder that the shift is going on right now.
Well, yes, as you very well pointed out, population growth is a big factor when it comes to real estate. Obviously, where there's population, there's going to be high growth, especially when there's a shortage in housing. So with a strong population growth in Victoria, which is such a great state, it is putting further pressure on. And people that were investing in states like Perth are really looking at Victoria now as an alternative option also to invest.
Yes, and what do you see as some of the bigger issues being a property investor, and some of the problems right now for investors, particularly in the Melbourne market, to contend with and push through?
Well, affordability is always a big one. Obviously, the cost of living has gone up a lot as well. People's incomes have not gone up accordingly. So making sure that people do not over leverage when they get into the property market, getting the right advice and the right team of people behind you is always something I've been preaching for my career, which is almost 25 years young and counting. Getting the right team of people that actually have a proven track record with helping investors understand what their net disposable income is, how much they can afford to borrow, what areas they should be looking at, and really putting in all that pre-work before they go into any investment option.
Particularly at this time in the cycle, the last thing that somebody wants to be doing is over-leveraging. And no doubt that's an area that you've seen that happen over and over again.
100%. And look, at buying a property in an emerging market is very important, and understanding the forward indicators. You mentioned population. What's the infrastructure spend? What's the employment in the area? What's the diversity of employment? Is it more than one or two sectors? All these things are very, very important. Every second person on the internet's an expert, been in real estate. But as I mentioned previously, What's their proven track record with their client success stories, with being able to advise? What are the forward indicators? Where should people be investing? What's their correct net disposable income they should be considering? All these things are very important factors when looking at real estate.
All right, so we are in Melbourne this morning talking to Chris, giving us his thoughts from a property investment company's point of view. We'll come back after this with more.
As we approach 1,000 episodes, a big thanks to all of our guests for their insightful knowledge, trends and forecasts. We look forward to another 1,000 episodes together.
Yeah, 1,000 episodes almost completed on the Real Estate Breakfast. Hard to believe, but by the end of the week, we are going to get there. And it's a bit of a testament to so much real estate activity and news, as well as, of course, the property cycle that we are in at the moment. It really has proven to be a constant stream of property information to keep you updated on every day, every week, every month. That has led to our hundreds and hundreds of guests that helps me break it all down with you. Of course, the more commentators and the more property professionals contributing every week, the more choices there are for you to form your own conclusions, and that is pretty important. And good morning to Eugene and May in Melbourne, listeners of the podcast, who especially want to hear more about tiny home podcasts. And in fact, we do have an episode coming up next Monday. So your email was just at the right time. So thank you for listening. And also good morning to Claire in Toowoomba. You say that you're not looking at moving out of Toowoomba, but rather you're looking for the best way to get your daughter into her first property. So let us know, Claire, how that all goes. And of course, if you would like to drop us an email, you can do that. Our email address is myrealestatepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
Gain insights with exclusive conversations from real estate professionals about buying, selling and investing across Australia.
And it is a Real Estate Tuesday. We are talking with Chris in Melbourne. Now, when we talk of affordable housing, there are many suburbs out there which we are constantly talking about. I know there is one suburb that fits this mould, especially for you, Chris, and that is Melton, which is a suburb on the outskirts of Melbourne. The suburb is located 47 k's west of Melbourne CBD on the city's western rural urban fringe. Now, they have at the minute rapid population growth, and I think you want to talk to the fact there's a $1 billion hospital project and a $2 billion business park underway. Are these the sorts of locations that you get especially excited by?
Well, look, I get excited where there's a lot of infrastructure being spent. Like as we said before, infrastructure is such a key driver when it comes to creating jobs, when it comes to creating value for real estate. And obviously with so much $3 billion, as we mentioned, on those two sectors, and it's a diversity of two different sectors, that's going to really drive property prices and demand in areas such as Melton.
So just talk to the actual growth of that particular suburb, because it seems that this fits as I said, it fits the mould that it's further enough away from the CBD, 47 k's, the buy-in price obviously lower, and the attraction factor happening all at the same time.
Well, again, with everything, you've heard the term many times, location, location, location. I've coined a term what I use, affordability. I believe you'll always make money in real estate if you can keep it for the right amount of time. So making sure you don't over leverage, you buy the right property, which is a vehicle to achieve your wealth through investing, is very, very important, because that first property or subsequent properties is so important to not over leverage, so you can make sure that you can afford those properties to buy a second, third, fourth, fifth, and really build your property portfolio. So areas like Melton is very good entry-level stock for people getting into the market or just expanding their property portfolios.
Yeah, and have you got some of those price points, entry point in terms of what is currently being offered up in Melton?
Well, look, I look at property prices. I try to stick within the $500,000 to $750,000 mark. We look at emerging markets in areas like Melton and across the country. They are becoming a lot more challenging to find because the medium house prices are going up in so many areas due to a number of factors. So it's all research driven. And I look at the property clock. So 9 o'clock is before a property area has grown and what are the forward indicators. And as you mentioned at the start, that infrastructure is a very, very good forward indicator to why areas like Melton will show strong capital growth.
Yeah, when you talk about the research, what do you sort of think about all of these portals that are out there? You said earlier that everybody is a bit of an expert. They can't help not be because of all the information. Anything that you would suggest to people when they're researching property on the portals and getting their information?
100%. Look, there's a lot of property information out there and there's a lot of property so-called gurus. Getting past that noise is so important. How would you get past the noise? You look at reputable people that do research. You look at companies that have been around for a long time with a proven track record that have a lot of clients that have property portfolios that have shown success. So when I look at what advice do I get and where do I get it from, you want to make sure the source is a good source. You've got to get the right data that also looks at not only historical data, but why it's going to predict to grow as well, and go to the right company that when they put their investors in an area, this is something that's very important. They invest there themselves as well. So I've got 3 different steps that I follow before I enter any area. So we do a lot of research before we go into an area, before we personally also invest in the area and make sure that we can recommend our clients there.
And what about the APRA loosening things? Have you got any thoughts around that?
I think that's very good because obviously with the property prices going up and APRA loosening its regulations there so people can get into the property market, the first home buyers market is very, very important because with the cost of living going up, as we mentioned before, with rates being high, APRA needed to look at, they had a 3% buffer on the average interest rate, which is the serviceability where people can get into the property. So people's net disposable income, what they had after they paid their bills wasn't much. So unless APRA reduced some of that regulations or loosened it up a bit, people could not get into the property market. But once again, it comes down to good advice. It comes down to not over leveraging, getting into the right property. The right property is a stepping stone to buy your next property and so on and so on. So getting that advice is so important before you spend $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 and you invest all this money. Getting that advice to make sure you're comfortable, make sure you should invest in that area with good reasons why is so important if you want to become a successful property investor to build a property portfolio.
Well, we are at the end of August, heading into September. Gee, spring is here. That didn't take long, so I guess we're all going to be hoping that from spring and all the way through to the end of the year, that the market just kind of finds its nice little equilibrium. Hey, great to catch up with you, Chris, and find out some of your thoughts there in Melbourne. Enjoy your Tuesday, and thanks for coming on to the Real Estate Breakfast this morning.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
Listen to in-depth discussions with industry leaders on investing options, understanding different suburbs with insider perspectives and exclusive tips.
We can't build quick enough. Our population trajectory is holding strong. We've got some really good developers and builders trying to get some good mixed-use product out of the market to meet supply first quarter 2025. I don't see it being too dissimilar to what it is right now.
I think if you go back to the start of COVID, this wouldn't have been the prediction that a company like yours would be looking at Melbourne to start buying and advising.
No, definitely not. There's still a lot of opportunity for our clients, in WA. When we're sitting down and assessing the portfolios of the clients that we work with day in and day out, value for money, we're starting to look elsewhere, and the Melbourne market for us is starting to stand out.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.